The other day, I was sort of pissed on by police officers because of a series of lies that local retail employees, particularly women, I believe, told about my situation. I had already been planning from the early morning hours to leave this space because the weather had broken. I wasn't landlocked in with the snow drifts and other aspects of ice that were keeping me sort of stuck on a particular space. And openly, I'm always very thoughtful of who's around and how much area I'm taking up because I don't want to be intrusive to anyone, but it's the life of someone who's in struggle, someone who's working hard through their own industry to recover their life. Now, the funny thing was that it was very odd that the girls at the City Trends was coming down to give me some sort of a gift as if I was departing, and I had not said anything or done anything to indicate that I was leaving that day. I said in a few weeks or something, I think, or whatnot. But the truth is, they came down to try to give me some sort of a gift. The oddity of that was that when I received the card with a note from their divisional manager, it said there was a gift card in it, but in truth, there was no gift card inside. Now, to continue my story, what was odd is that I got sort of pissed on by a police officer who followed me into a shopping store, which happened to be City Trends. I went down there to look at some clothing for myself because I regularly buy my things there, despite the fact that each time I buy something, I find that an officer has shaved the opportunities for me to have new clothes off. But we'll go into that another time. At any rate, the officer asked me to move my things or move myself or simply leave in some way. And what happened was the City Trends girls came down and were very upset about the whole thing, saying, he shops in my store, he shops in the Dollar Tree. I don't think this is an issue. The Dollar Tree women have blamed by the officers to have asked that situation to come to pass. But what happened was when I mentioned that to one of the supervisors, all of a sudden there was a big rigmarole of the girls coming out saying, I didn't do that. I wasn't a part of that. Well, we'll see. When we go to the documents, when we get the records, we'll find out who did what. But I guess the funny part about the whole story is most of you know I have this little mouse named Marcel who likes to kind of, when especially during the winter, who was sort of exploring the tent that I was using to keep myself warm. So the moral of the story was, I guess Marcel didn't like the police officers pissing all over me because as I moved myself across the highway to go find some supper and to do a few things, I was about to go get my second hamburger for the evening because I was still just a wee bit hungry, and I thought that I could pull that off in my budget for another simple thing, but just to not be short for the next day because I'm always planning ahead. And I guess the funny thing was, I'm sitting there just kind of letting my dinner settle, and all of a sudden I see Marcel running up and down my rollator cart. And I just was sort of taken back by that because basically, I guess he decided to travel with me. So, although I hadn't planned to come back across the street to where Marcel's home is, I felt that I had to return Marcel home. Now, that sort of sounds silly to a lot of people, but when we got down close to the pet store, which is a place that I have a lot of hacking going on for when I attempt to use a little bit of Wi-Fi that is governed by the United States government that says we have the right to affordable Wi-Fi, there's always a challenge. But what I noticed at that point was that Marcel was down on the lower part of my rollator cart, so I recognized that he had stopped his hiding and he was ready to go home. Well, his home was say a few meters or a few hundred yards in a different direction, so I said, okay, Marcel, we'll go down there. So then I went down and I sat sort of where his little house was, and I just basically prayed that he would get off and go home. And sure enough, I believe he did that. But the moral of the story was that here I'm having this rough day, and all of a sudden, Marcel the mouse is saying, I don't like those police officers either, and I'm going with you. So it's sort of a cute little story because I didn't expect you to be that attached or that precocious, but it took me a good 20-30 minutes to pick up my bags and do things, so I wondered if he had gotten caught in a bag or if he had just explored the cart and fallen asleep. The funny thing about animals is how God sends them to us. So today was sort of a rough day, and I was busy just having a beautiful day with being out in the sunshine, getting a little bit of suntan with it being warmer and whatnot, and my geese were not really my geese, I guess.